Okay, welcome to our next edition of our Youth Expo 2021. We're delighted to be joined by two of the top handball stars, not alone in Ireland, but worldwide, in Clare's Colin Crehan and Galway's Ciana. So, Colin and Ciana, first of all, thanks very much for joining us.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
What we're here to talk about today, guys, is transitioning from underage to senior. And it's obviously a very interesting topic. It's something that all the top senior players, of course, have dealt with over the years. And we've seen lots of talented young players who haven't made the grade at senior level. So for the next half hour or so, I'm just going to pick your brains, your two players who have made that transition. So maybe start with you, Colin, and bring it back to the very start. How were you first introduced to the game of handball? And when did you first realise, I suppose, that you had a talent for it?
I suppose it's through my dad, really, that got me involved. I suppose our hurling club were lucky enough to have a handball alley, two handball alleys actually in the parish. So it's kind of through that. My dad and my oldest brother used to play, another father and son, and then through that, I suppose I kind of just wanted to get into it. So yeah, I've been playing since I was 10 years old, and never looked back, really.
And did there come a point, is there any point in your memory where you thought to yourself, I'm actually quite good at this, or I'm adept at it? And was there any sort of milestone success at juvenile level that sort of encouraged you to keep with it and showed you that you were improving?
I suppose probably the junior nationals under 13. I suppose I wouldn't have never really put much thought into it. I suppose as a young person, I wouldn't really thought about winning national titles or winning county titles. I suppose I just loved playing. Like when I was that age growing up, I was obsessed with just playing handball, and any wall was a threat to be played off, and just growing up. But I suppose then when I got to that level, and I remember playing down at Loughlin Gales, and it's probably the first time playing in a big crowd like that. There was people from all over Ireland there. I remember 𝗨𝗍𝗶_𝗏𝗏 was in the same dressing room as me before the game. My dad was asking him to give me some advice, and it's playing 𝗨𝗍𝗶_𝗶𝗏 at the time. So it's just I suppose that was kind of the first taste of what I got. I was beaten at the time. First taste of the big stage, I suppose.
And Ciana, the same question to you. Just how you first were introduced to handball, and then when you first, I suppose, began to stand out or grew comfortable playing against your peers, and then maybe started to realise that there was a pathway there for you.
Yeah, I started playing. My brother played when I was younger, so I would always see him, and they had a good group, his age group, that would go playing. And at the time, I kind of wanted to do anything my brother did, so I would kind of tag along to the court. And then one day, the coach, Jimmy at the time, he said, "Sure, why don't you go in there now while they're taking a break and just tip around?" And then he tried to convince my mother to let me go training, but she thought I was too young because I was only like 7 at the time, I think. But sure, I really wanted to do it. So that's when I started, really. And then I guess, like Colin said, it's kind of the nationals that stand out to me. The first thing I thought of when you asked that question to Colin was winning the junior nationals, the under 13 level, when I was 11, and getting on the Irish team to go to Chicago that year in 2009. I think that was the first time I had played and won a nationals. And I was playing 𝗨𝗨 at the time, and I kind of couldn't believe that I had won. So then after that experience and that trip, it was that was the best Christmas of my life until then. So I was like, oh, I want to keep trying to do this. And then sure, on the other end, the following year, I was heartbroken when I lost. But that's kind of just how it goes. And then I guess in training, you kind of realize when you're getting better, because the people that maybe you are around the same level with, suddenly you're able to beat them consistently, and you start playing with new people. So you just notice those things as you're growing up.
And I suppose we're going to talk about the transition from underage in itself to playing adult and senior handball. But even within underage handball, there's various transitions. So let's say, Colin, when you were talking about the time that you played 𝗨𝗍𝗶𝗏𝗏, and you're probably quite overawed by the occasion. When you got into your later teens, then the game's getting more serious. Then how did you adapt to that, or what were the areas where you knew that you had to step up?
I suppose growing up, or even in my own club, I suppose I would have been used to playing older players probably more senior players. So I could have played the Coonies and stuff, and I could have been a couple of years older. I suppose those kind of games probably helped kind of mature me for kind of playing those bigger games, because, you know, you're playing people who are, I suppose, more intimidating, but albeit they're delighted to get the games. So I suppose having that kind of competition in my own club was a huge help to that. And, you know, just playing older players, or always playing someone that was probably at a higher level.
And
so,
how did your preparation change, would say, when you were, like, I know in handball sometimes we just tend to play, and I know at the elite level obviously it's different, but coming up as kids, there's something about the game where you just want to get in and keep hitting, and you said that yourself, you just enjoyed playing so much. But did there come a point in your juvenile career where you started to train differently, maybe work on shots or work on tactics rather than just going in and playing handball?
I suppose probably under 14. Yeah, maybe when I was 14, probably started to take it serious. In, like, I suppose, as you said, working on technique, working on both hands. I suppose that would have been through like Pat Donlan, who would have been started coaching me at that time. So I suppose at that stage I kind of probably became conscious of developing both hands, and, you know, trying to have both of them the same, and, you know, I suppose slowly started to see the benefit of having you know, two equal hands. I suppose probably that, just focusing on both sides of my game. Probably what.
And is there, and just to bring you in there, Ciana, looking at both of you players, and you both have a very distinct style of play that you can see playing now at senior level, but when you look back on yourself when you were in your mid-teens, would say, did you play the same style of handball back then? Is that style a sort of almost a personality thing, or just the way that you naturally start to play it, or is the style you have now something that you consciously worked on?
That's actually an interesting question that I haven't put much thought into, like how much I've changed. I think when I was younger, I was a lot more emotional in the court. Like, no shame in saying I would get very upset if I was losing or lost a game. And that obviously impacts your game. Like, maybe you try and hit the ball harder instead of kind of taking a step back and thinking about what's actually going to help. So I think that's one area that I've consciously worked on over the years, is like, no matter how the game is going, just trying to play how I play, instead of kind of trying to force things because it's not going how I want, or maybe taking a step back because I'm ahead by a lot. So maybe just trying to play more level-headed is something that I've worked on a lot over the years.
And is that, I suppose, as a juvenile, like you, as a child, essentially, that's probably a hard thing to do. I know from kids I coach, or kids I've seen playing, that it can be hard for youngsters like that to control their emotions. Is that something that just takes time, or from your psychological background, can you see that you can instill this into kids as well?
I think there's a bit of both. Like, of course, as you grow, you learn and you realize that, okay, hitting the ball harder when I'm angry isn't necessarily getting me the results I want. But of course, like, I'm very biased, but I will say, like, those are things that you can work on with people from a very young age, not just in sport, but in anything. Like, you know, like, not even controlling your emotions, just being aware of them and how they're affecting you, and then maybe choosing more effective ways to handle situations that you're in.
Colin, so will you talk us through, we'll say you hit minor level, you talk us through how you your journey from, we'll say, like one of the best minor players coming right through to winning senior doubles, All-Irelands, and competing at the very top level in senior singles. What goes into that sort of a journey? Like, that just doesn't happen overnight. That obviously takes years, and it takes wins and losses and everything else that goes with it. But maybe just talk about that for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I suppose the first thing it needs is patience. You know, it's very hard to jump straight up. I just didn't jump from minor up to senior, and very few players have. Maybe Ciana probably has now, but I suppose first year out of minor, I was first year out of minor. I was kind of doing the leaving cert and stuff, and that kind of took priority. So I didn't play as much handball. But then, I suppose following that, then the following year, I set my target on the intermediate singles. You know, went all out for that. You know, trained hardest I ever trained, I'd say, for, at that point it was, and, paid off. I got over 𝗨𝗱𝗱𝗏 in a tiebreaker in the final of that, and really just pushed on from there. The following year I played the under-21s, and would have won that. And then I suppose after that, I was lucky enough to team up with Diarmuid then, and I suppose, the experience of playing with him, not only was lucky enough to have him around even to play singles games with, and, even just get advice off, because I suppose he kind of taken me under his wing. And then I suppose from that then just pushed on and eventually got to the top of the senior doubles.
But you say pushed on, and you make it sound easy, like I could just push on and win a senior doubles if I wanted, but it's just not that easy. So, like, when you say you just pushed on, like, what did that incorporate? Does that mean you sat down and you did some goal setting, or you decided to change your training, or was it just a natural maturity that came physically and mentally as well?
I suppose, yeah, maybe that's underestimating it. I suppose a lot more thought does go into it. When you're growing up at that age, there's a lot of things going on, so you have to make sacrifices. And I suppose, yeah, it would be goal setting. I've obviously the goal of trying to win the senior singles that I haven't accomplished yet, but definitely when the doubles would have been one. So it would have been something, I'd earmarked. I'd have planned my year around. I suppose I'd have analysed my game. I'd have watched my games. I'd have watched other senior players. I'd try see what I'm doing wrong, and where I can improve on. And probably one of the big things was the fitness. Being able to go the distance. So obviously that entailed doing paying a lot more attention to that. And between different circuit training and things like that, running, skipping, all those things. Actually doing gym work, I suppose up until that point I wouldn't really have done much gym work, because never really crossed my mind, I suppose. I never really exposed it. And then from there on, yeah.
And what were the different? Maybe just to bring you in on this one, Ciana. What were the differences that you noticed when you started playing senior handball compared to playing, let's say, minor handball or at lower grades of handball? Because obviously senior handballers are probably better in every aspect, or physically better in every aspect. Was there anything else that you noticed about a senior player that they just can do things differently to the average Joe?
I guess one of the main things, and Colin mentioned it, like he said the word patience, and I guess people who make it in a senior level, it really is about just sticking with it. Like I think, for example, going from minor to senior is so different because players are stronger, fitter. They've probably been there for longer than you. You've come from when you're like a top underage player, maybe you win a tournament every month or every few months, to there's fewer opportunities to have that success. So you really have to have more structure to your training and what you're doing, and like when you're peaking. So I think maybe one of the main differences is people who can find that structure, so that their training is leading up to this one tournament, instead of, I'm going to play the minor championship now in the 4x20, and then in a few weeks I'll play in this tournament, and then after that I'll play the one wall. It's maybe more focused, and just being able to stick with it, especially when you're making the transition, because you might not see the same success that you did at underage for a while. And
that's a hard thing to do, because for young handballers, like you just want to play handball. You want to play the big court. You want to play the one wall weekend tournaments and things like that. So, like when you talk about peaking and so on, are you saying that you need to sacrifice maybe playing too much handball, just zone in on one particular goal that you have?
To some degree, yeah. I guess what I mean there is, like, when I think back on, like, from under 14 to minor, sure, I won so many competitions, like, not trying to blow my own horn, but like, that's a great feeling. Like, you love that feeling, and as an elite athlete, you live for that feeling, like playing in front of people and winning. Like, everyone loves it, no denying it. And then for me, for example, I still haven't won an open 40x20 competition, which is, I put most of my work into the 40x20. So it's been like 5-6 years that I'm playing at senior level. So you kind of have to find other ways to motivate you too. Yes, I want to win, but I've also learned, like, I play because, you know, I really love playing and I love developing, and there's always something to work on. So you kind of find other motivators to keep you going when you're not necessarily going to win a tournament every month or every couple of months.
And it's probably tougher in ladies handball too. Would you agree with that? In that the jump from minor to senior in ladies handball, considering the quality we have at the top of the ladies senior grade at the minute, it's probably arguably even greater than the jump in male handball at the minute.
I guess it's just very different because there's more male handballers who are like older than minor. So maybe you get through junior levels, intermediate, and then you play in senior. Whereas for me, for example, I played intermediate and I also played senior the same year. And you often face a lot of the same people. In every single tournament, you might get the same path to the final. So I guess that can be challenging in itself, like just the way it happens to play out, because there is a smaller number of people and maybe the gap between the top and those beneath is bigger than in the men's. But I'm sure Colin can say more about that.
Yeah, well, Colin, I'd like to get your thoughts on that, actually, yeah.
I'd probably agree, but I suppose still at the same time, like, you know, it probably is the same gap though if you do still take the top 3 players in the men's and then you compare them to someone just out of minor. There's probably just a lot more players in between, as you'd say. You know, there's just so much experience that goes into getting to the top that I obviously don't even know about, you know, that, you know, the likes of 𝗨𝗱𝗱𝗃𝗃 and these lads have. But it's definitely a long road getting there.
And why do you think, we all know about in all sports, like a player who's a brilliant minor or a brilliant under 16 player, maybe even comes in their first year senior and does some great things, and players like that sometimes fade away. And we've all seen it in hurling football as well. But why do you think some players do struggle with that transition?
I suppose another. It's hard to compare to. I always think that with handball, it's hard to compare to other sports because, you know, you're on your own. So whereas like in a team sport, you often see 18, 19, 20-year-olds coming through. But they're probably minded and they're probably they're brought up, raised by the senior players in the team. Whereas handball is just that individual sport where, yeah, you may have a good first year, but like, you know, you mightn't take it to the next level. You know, you mightn't get the best advice, or you mightn't, I suppose, be, you know, you just need more direction maybe. Like great. See, the thing with senior is like you can have a great year just out, but you know, it might depend on the players you met. Might depend on the luck of the draw. You know, you might have got an easy draw, or, you know, I'm not taking away from anyone that does make it, just out of minor, but you know, it's definitely a longer process than 1 year. Yeah,
what would be your thoughts on that, Ciana?
I guess, like Colin said, when you're playing in a team, like for example, if you're playing at the top level in football, like you're on the county team probably, and you probably have a strength and conditioning coach coming to you, a nutritionist coming to you, a sports psychologist coming to you, providing you with all of these services. Whereas in handball, unless you seek those things out and you try and work on them yourself, then it's not gonna just fall into your lap. So I guess maybe the thing is that some things work at minor level because maybe no one or not many people have tapped into those aspects of their performance. But then the people who usually make it and are successful are the ones who utilize everything that helps performance. So maybe that's why some people can struggle more, because they're slower to looking into those things while others are kind of ahead of the game.
And that could be a challenge that's sort of unique to our sport, because I wanted to ask both of you about playing high level in other sports as well. But before we get on to that, like in terms of handball, I always think you do need to be a very motivated person, because you mightn't get all the same plaudits that you get from other sports. Well, you probably don't get all the same plaudits you get from other sports. As you say, you don't get all the same backroom team and stuff like that. So do you think it's a certain type of individual maybe that tends to come to the top in handball?
It's a very diligent, diligent individual that does come to the top. Like, you picking out like players here, but like, the likes of Killian, the likes of Diarmaid Nash. You can just watch these people. Like, you just know they're very technical in what they do. Like, they tick all the boxes. They know strength and conditioning, stretching, physique. Like, they're on top of everything, and there's like nothing any of the variables, like they don't leave anything out. Like Paul Brady obviously as well. And I suppose they probably take all those boxes.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that, Ciana?
I think all top handballers have one thing in common, and that's that they're all very unique. But yeah, like, I think it does maybe in a way take a certain type of individual, but at the same time, I think that individual becomes that way because of being involved in this sport. And like, like Colin said earlier, you don't have someone at the top level who's kind of your coach or making you go training, which is pretty unique in itself, but it can be the same for younger players too. It's a lot up to yourself, even when you are 15, 16. Like, you don't have your teammates relying on you to show up, or maybe you won't have a manager ringing you to ask where you are, and it might be up to you to go to the handball alley alone. So that does take a specific type of person that can be challenging, and maybe that's why some people will keep going and other people might turn to something else.
Yeah, I want to ask you both about juggling two sports, because I know a lot of the young people that'll be watching this will be excelling in other sports, be it football, hurling, basketball, or rugby, or whatever it is. Just maybe start with you, Colin. Like, I know you're playing a high level of hurling and you've played county hurling. Can it be done that you can split your time now and try to maximise your potential in both as you get older, or do you think it's reaching a stage where young players are going to have to make a choice?
Well, I suppose for me personally, I would have played till under 21 level, and I suppose it nearly all just boils down to your coaches on the county teams, how they feel about handball. I was lucky enough that my manager Donald Maloney at the time, was happy enough to facilitate me to play handball. So like, there was never a problem. Like, there was, and to be honest, there's only a slight overlap in the season. I suppose, like, when I was hurling that time, it was from January to July. So it was only kind of those, and the handball season kind of finishes in April. So it's kind of only those 1 or 2 months where I was kind of being pulled and dragged. But for under 21 level, anyways, like, I can say it can be done. I can't speak for senior into county hurling and trying to juggle it with handball, because that's something I've done.
Yeah, so if you were to give advice to let's say a minor who might be on a county minor panel, something like that, you would say it can be done? It can definitely be done up as far as senior, anyway.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I think a chat with your manager is, and just let them know, like, what handball means to you, like, that you're not just willing to drop it, and like, can it be done? I generally think any reasonable person would let that happen.
And I know we're always singing the praises of handball in relation to hurling, but as a hurler, like, what are the benefits there for handball? I suppose it's a well covered topic, but no harm going over it again.
What are the benefits for hurling to handball?
Yeah, well, vice versa, I suppose, as well.
Which are definitely the fitness. The fitness is huge. Like, that kind of long haul fitness, and that like long hard running that you'd be doing in hurling definitely transfers over. I think kind of more of the the short game and the short kind of sprints and more the agility from the handball probably benefits the hurling more, I'd find. I suppose it's often said to me that I've kind of a good snap of a ball, like, I'd ball be bouncing in front of me in a hurling match, and I, pluck it or whatever and kind of turn off, swivel off the shoulder. But I suppose, yeah, that'd be kind of my take on it.
Yeah, Ciana, how did you find it competing in ladies football and handball? Was there ever a time where you considered stepping away from one to focus on the other?
Not really until I did. So in leaving cert, like, I played minor football, minor camogie, and I played handball, like trying to compete at the top level, and I did. And I wouldn't have done anything differently if I went back. Like, absolutely, you can do it. The one thing I'll say is I had every minute planned, like, of my day. Like, before school, I knew what I was doing. After school, go to the library for an hour, get picked up, go training, study in the car on the way home, coming up to the exams. And, for some people that might seem like I would never do that. But for me, I would say you can absolutely do it if you want to. Then going into college, I guess playing at college level, maybe that's when I started to think about it more, because I was suddenly trying to play for my college down in UL. I was trying to play county still for both, play handball and play for my club, and it kind of all became a bit much at that stage for me personally, like trying to do all three at three different levels. So then I stepped away from one. I think I stepped away from county camogie first, and it took me a little bit longer to make a decision regarding football. And that's just because I was studying and trying to do everything at once, and it got to a point for me that maybe it was a bit much, thinking back now. So I made the decision to step away and to focus on handball, just because I felt like I wasn't giving my all to anything at that point. I was trying to do everything. Now, when I go home, I would love to have another crack at, like, I think about it, I'm like, I'd love to try and play county again and play handball, but you never know. I guess it just depends on the person. You definitely can do it. It's just kind of what you want to do and how you can manage it best.
And Colin touched on it earlier, the fact that obviously hurling and football and camogie are team sports, handball is an individual sport. Could it be argued that handball is nearly a release valve from the pressures of it, because it's you yourself, you're not being answerable to a manager or to teammates and so on. You can slot in your own trainer whenever suits you. From that point of view, does an individual sport complement a team sport and reduce the risk of burnout?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I think back, it was only when I had a tournament really that I had to say to my managers, like, here, I'm doing this, so, I'm going to have to be a bit flexible here. Like, in regards to training, they didn't really know what I was doing with handball. It was more awkward, say, playing county camogie and county football, trying to navigate that, because there would be times it would clash. But that's one of the things I've always loved most about handball is it's all on you, like you train, and you're the result of the outcome you get, the work you put in. And that's like one of my favorite things, and it has been for the longest time.
So I suppose before we finish up, this series of videos is aimed at young people. And Colin, if you were to give one tip to a player in their teens, and I'm not talking about a technical tip, but a player who's looking to bring their game to the next level, and a player that maybe has been a good minor or looking to be a good minor, maybe is a good under 16 player, but what would you say to them if they want to go on and maybe win All-Ireland senior medals?
I suppose patience. I know we mentioned that word already. Just patience, stick with it, and just keep take small steps. It's all about the small steps as opposed to big leaps.
And
the same question to you, Ciana.
Colin stole my answer. I'm joking. I'll say something different then. I guess remembering why you're doing what you're doing. Like, we all start playing handball not because we want to win, but because we really enjoy it. So I think that's something we kind of forget as we grow up, is like, yeah, we want to win, but also remembering why you actually play, you know. That's something I've been thinking about a lot the last year when there is no competition. Like, I don't necessarily have to play for a competition, but, you know, I want to play handball rather than the feeling like I need to play. So I guess just remembering that, like, why you actually enjoy the sport.
I suppose while we have you here, we may as well ask for a technical tip as well. If players are going practicing something, what skills do you think in particular are important to have in your armoury when you go into senior handball, Colin?
I suppose, you know, both two good hands. You know, both your weak hand as close to your strong hand as you can. And, you know, that just means you're practicing your right hand for 10 shots. You practice your weak hand for 12 shots. You know, you do that little bit extra on your weak hand just to try and bring it along. And like when you kind of peel it all back, you know, essentially you're trying to do the exact same thing on your weak hand that you are on your strong hand. You know, all the mechanics are the same. It's just a mirror image. So I think you can definitely develop your weak hand. You go a long way.
Ciana, you can't say the same answer.
Okay. I would say then to complement that, obviously, like footwork. You know, you could have the loveliest stroke, but if your feet are all over the place, then the ball's not going to go where you want it to go most of the time. So I would say just work on your feet, being fast, and also just having them in the right place when you're taking your shots.
And the final, we give you the final question here, Ciana. I actually spoke to a boxer recently, and he's a fella from Cavan, and he has had no fight for almost a year now, but he's a pro. He's just making his way in the pros. But he has a fight coming up now in Luxembourg in March, and he was telling me it was such a relief because he said, for the last 7 or 8 months, I didn't feel like a boxer because I had nothing coming up. He said, I just felt like I was wandering along and I wasn't really a boxer anymore. And I was thinking maybe there's probably some young handball players feeling the same, but they've had no competition now for almost a year. And okay, they're a handballer, but they're sort of a handballer that doesn't play handball anymore because, unfortunately, of the lockdown restrictions. So for any young person that's watching this and maybe feeling that way and feeling that they used to play so much handball, pride themselves, it was part of their identity and it's sort of gone now, what would you say to them now in lockdown?
Oh, you put me on the spot. No, I'm joking. I guess I would say, like, similar to what I said before, like, we kind of in this situation, we're thinking about all the things we can't do. Like we can't compete, and maybe right now we can't go to the handball court, which is obviously a big barrier to being a handball player. So I guess using this time and asking yourself, what can I do? So maybe there's aspects of your game that you can develop without being at the court. And maybe this is a great time, as we're away from the pressure that comes with competing sometimes, to put time into those things. Like, you can work on your footwork at home. You can throw the ball against the wall. Like Colin said, replicate your weak hand and your strong hand. Maybe you use this time to work on your mindset, winky face. But, you know, there's so many different aspects to handball that's going to help you as a handball player outside of just hitting a ball against a wall or playing games. So maybe take some time to ask yourself, instead of like thinking about what I can't do, okay, what can I do that's going to help my game right now? Okay,
well, brilliant advice there. I just want to say thanks to yourself, Ciana, and to Colin for joining us, and for any young people watching, if you follow in the footsteps of Ciana and Colin, you won't go too far wrong. So thanks very much, guys, and hope to see you back in the court soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.